So one of the things we want to focus on in 4C, and it's part of the reason I'm doing this budget thing, it's a big part of the reason I'm doing this budget thing. Thank you. That I'm doing the budget thing for you. It isn't that I love looking at Excel spreadsheets every week. Okay, I got better things to do with my time. But I want you folks to have some idea of where the job that you're looking at can take you. Just as importantly, where it won't take you. Okay? I don't want anybody to get a job, be 20 years into it, and then realize, crud, I'm never going to be able to, and fill in the blank, whatever one of your life dreams is. Okay? I'm sure there are things that each of you has in mind that you would like to accomplish or do, places that you, or things that you would like to see, or how you would like to live. Okay? Now's the time to start planning toward those things. That's what your career's about, isn't it? And I want to make sure that you know if the career that you're looking at is going to get you there or not. Because I can think of nothing much more disappointing than spending 4 or 5 years of time and money and finding out, crud, this job is not worth having. That's not a good position to be in. Okay? So, one of the things we want to take a look at then is, first off, we looked at how much will you have at the end if you save so much a month, right? We've worked through this. Does this one look familiar to everybody? Now, Friday on the quiz, I'll give you the formula, but I'll ask you to figure out, okay, so if Trey is doing this every month, how much is he going to have in 30 years? Can he retire? Okay, if he retires, is he going to be able to eat? Okay, and go from there. Okay. Does anybody need to work through an example of this one, or is everybody good on this? Okay. All right, and we worked through this problem, and we got to these definitions. And this is about where we left off last time. It's really important for you to know what the terms mean, because when you get around HR, when you get around whatever investment firms you're going to be working with to save toward retirement, to save toward whatever it is you've got in mind, they're going to start talking about things like this. Okay? And I think I mentioned the other day, don't just stand there and shake your head yes like you know what's going on if inside you're doing, this isn't working at all. Okay? Be upfront with them and tell them, I don't know what that means. And if they're not willing to work with you on that, find somebody else. Okay, here's one. And this is where I'd really like to get to and through today to make sure that this makes sense to you. You'd like to retire in 25 years, 30 years, 35 years, whatever it is. Okay? And have enough in retirement that you can every year draw so much from it. Now what you're drawing from it is not, okay, your savings. What's going to happen is when you retire, you're going to have some bag of money. Ideally, you never want to touch that money. You want to just have that money stay invested, and each year that invested money is going to yield some interest. Whoever has the money, you're paying them to take that money and make it grow. And what will happen is each year from this, there will be some interest. A littler bag of money. This is what you want to live on each year. You never open up the big bag. Never. That big bag stays there, and every year it pays you some interest. And you want to live on the interest. Now this is where you got to tweak things. How much do you need a year to live on? Well, gosh, Chuck, I've not even thought about retirement. Okay? Do you like living about the way you do now? In the kind of communities you do now? Or do you see yourself someplace else? Okay, you got to figure out what kind of lifestyle you want to have. Well, I want to eat. I want to keep a roof over my head. I like having a car. It doesn't have to be a brand new Ferrari. Whatever. Okay? And then at this point, you start out with, okay, 50,000. Let's see what that looks like. Now remember, by the time you retire, will you be paying a mortgage on your house? Hope not. Will you still have kids underfoot? Hope not. They'll all be through college and done. Hopefully weddings are paid for, and this is paid for, and everything's paid for. And all you've got at this point in time is you, and if you're hitched up, your spouse, and that's it. Woohoo! Finally get to have some fun. You've already had a ton of fun. You got albums of pictures. Okay? But you want to move on and have some more fun. Enjoy life. How much is that going to take a year? Well, I don't know. Let's see what's going on. Let's start off with this one. Let's assume that you've got your big bag of money situated somewhere where you can expect to get at least 7% a year, most years. 7% is not a huge killing it amount of money if you're invested. Okay? If it's in mutual funds and things like that. In fact, I'll show you an example straight out. Becky's in my life here in a little bit. And it's more than 7%. Okay? How much do you have to have in the big bag so that you get $50,000 every year? Well, the big bag, I don't know what it is that's in there, but I do know that I'm going to multiply by 0.07, and I want that to equal $50,000. Does that make sense? Okay. Not quite sure what's in the big bag of money, but I wanted to come up with $50,000 in interest every year. Well, to solve for what's in the big bag, all you do is you take and you divide the 50,000 by 0.07. And when you do that, it works out, I'm rounding this off a little bit. It's 714,000 and a few hundred bucks. Let's say $715,000. That means that from the time when you graduate and you make your first paycheck until you make your last paycheck, you have to come up with a plan, a strategy for say, having $715,000 laying there somewhere. How are you going to do that? That's section 4D and later, some other stuff. Okay? Well, I think it's some of it's in here too. But what we know is right now, during your working years, you've got to get a total of $715,000 together. That may sound like a huge amount. It is. But if you start early, like when you first graduate and get your first job, some of you are already going on it. Some of you already have 401ks. And I'm thinking, yes. Okay? A lot of that money is going to be interest. You're going to put in less than half, and the interest is going to be more than half. So that means over 35 years' time or whatever, you got to come up with maybe $250,000. And the other chunk is going to be from interest growth on the investments.
That's a year, or is it total?
Total. It's livable. It's doable. Okay? Okay, so if you want to come up with $715,000 and you acknowledge the fact that, yeah, it's going to be making some interest, how much money do you have to plan on putting aside every month? This is where your part of the plan comes in. This is where this class comes in. So that you can start to understand right now, am I going to make it? You've got to get to $715,000 to have about $50,000 a year. Does that make sense? And some of you are thinking $50,000, that's not going to work. We'll talk about that too. Okay, so what do you need to do? Okay. You have to come up with $715,000. You want $50,000 a year in interest. Okay. Let's assume here. Now, one of the things I want you to notice is this is being conservative because what this is assuming is the whole 25 years, how much are you making a year, interest-wise? 7%, okay, or 0.07. Monthly deposits, once a month. If you're paid every 2 weeks, it'll be n equals 26. But monthly is close enough, it's not going to make that much difference. And here we're going to use y equals 25 years. Whoa, that's kind of pushing it, isn't it? If you start a job at 25, this means your goal is to retire at what age? 50. Well, Chuck, the government says you can't retire till you're 68. That's if you want Social Security. You know how you can tell what age you really retire at? When you've got enough money saved up. Oh, never thought of it like that. When you've got enough money to live on saved up, you can quit. If you want. Okay? So let's look at 25 years, then we'll look at 30 years. Now, this is messed up. If you look at it in the textbook, this shouldn't be a plus, this should be times. Makes a big difference. Okay, so what are we going to do here? Well, remember the numbers that we wanted to use. We were thinking that with $715,000 total saved, that would work, $50,000 a year. I could live on that. Okay? You're not going to be taking 4-month vacations and things like that. Well, you might, but you're going to be doing it in a tent. Okay? You get the idea. This is nothing crazy. Make sense? So you go ahead and you plug in the numbers. And here comes the fun part. Notice I borrowed some slides from Pearson. And notice they finally got the plus sign. How do you figure this out on a calculator anyway? Well, what I would suggest that you do, and they said 25 years, didn't they? There's another mistake here. This should be 25. N times y. N is 12. How many times a year are you making the deposits? 12 times a year. The way deposits will sometimes work, depending on how things are set up, is you may be doing it in a Vanguard account or something, and they take it out every month from your checking account, or they take it out every paycheck. It depends. Okay, so let's figure out what's going on here. Where am I going to start working this thing? Well, the bottom looks a little messier. So the first thing I'm going to do is, that exponent looks kind of messy. I'm going to do the 12 times the 25. Aha. So that gives me 300. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do then is work with inside this parenthesis. Should I do the addition first or the division first? Division. So I'm going to do 0.07 divided by 12 equals plus 1 equals. Okay, so that gives me this number. Still working in the denominator, because the numerator just has one multiplication to it, doesn't it? In the denominator, should I subtract the 1 or raise that to the 300th power first? Well, let's see. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents. Oh, so I guess I do the 300 next. So the way I'm going to do this on the calculator is I'm going to put in 1.0058, whatever, raised to the 300th power. Okay, so I'm going to raise that to the 300th power. Aren't you glad you don't have to do that by hand? That number times itself 300 times, it get a little old. So we get 5.725. Everybody good there? Make sure you can do this on the calculator, because guess what's going to happen Friday? Yeah. Then I'm going to subtract 1 equals. So the denominator is going to be 4.72542. I'm going to round it off there. Okay. So the denominator is done. I've got a number. In the numerator, I've got the 715,000. And I'm going to multiply that times the 0.0058333 equals. Okay. So this gives me 4170.81. And I'm going to divide that by 4.72542 equals. And this is going to give $882.63. Now, be careful. Is this how much you have to put away each year? That's how much you have to put away each month. Some of you, through doing your spreadsheets, are looking at $883, and can you put $883 into retirement each month? It's not going to work, is it? Well, dude, what are you going to do? One of the things you can do is say, okay, I guess 25 years isn't going to get it. Let's try 35 years. Oh. So I'm going to do 12 times 35 equals 420. Now, you don't have to recompute everything. Well, that's good news. All you have to do is down here on this second line, see where the 300 is? That's where we're going to start changing things. The 1.00583 still works, doesn't it? But now we're going to do the 1.0058333, and instead of raising it to the 300th power, we're going to raise it to the 420th. Does that make sense? Put that in, subtract 1 equals. Wow, the number got a whole lot bigger. This number is now 10.50599 divided by, does the number in the top change? No, I erased it, which I guess I shouldn't have. 415,000 times 0.0058333. So this is still going to be this 4170.8095. But this time I'm going to divide it by the 10.50599 equals, oh wow, look at this. Did that change the amount that I have to put in every month? That made it a whole lot more doable, didn't it? But realize what you just traded off. Yeah, I moved the number down. This might be a number most of you can make. But to get it to that number, what did it cost you? 10 years of your life. Because instead of working 25, you're now working what? 35. Okay? So what this means is, if you get a job at, let's say, 25, before you would have been able to retire at 50, this says you're now going to retire at 60. What if you can't make $397 a month? Let's say $400. What if you can't make $400 a month on your retirement? You see that 60? You're now going to maybe 68 or 70 or 75. So what winds up happening is, by putting more money in each month, you're buying back more of your life later on. Does that make sense? Whether you retire at 50, 60, or 68. Does this guarantee everybody gets to retire by 68? No. What is the thing that tells you when you can retire? How much money you got saved up? Okay? There's nothing in the law that says that you can't retire at 35. If you've got $2 million in investments at 35, can you retire? Yeah, if you want to. Because you've got the money to do it. There's nobody that's going to come around and say, oh, you can't retire now? Okay?
My
Yeah, good.
So, like, up until now, you, like, put money in it and
Right.
stuff. So what could I use that money for?
Retirement.
Really?
Okay. The idea of that, and that was very wise of your parents. Now with a Roth, you can pull it out to buy a house or to fund your children's college. Not yours, your kids. Okay? But the catch with both of those is you got to put it back in. So it's not a place that you can go to borrow money. But what that does is it buys down the age at which you can retire because you've already got 17, 18-year run on your retirement. I doubt that they're putting in $400 a month. If they are, drop to their feet and kiss them and tell them how wonderful they are.
Well, okay, so, like, the money I got from, like, little kid birthdays and
Yeah.
all that, like,
Yep.
all that money went in there, and then I started putting some
Yep.
of my money in it. So, like, they're not the ones just, like, making payments in it.
That's fine. They got it started.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they may not be throwing 400 in a month.
No.
I wish my parents would have done that for me, but very honestly, they didn't know about it. Okay? We know about it. We've got our kids going on it. Am I going to fund most of it? No. It's their life. They should fund it. But they've got a really cool pattern going for you. And what we're after for you now is getting you to the point where if you want to retire at 50, you can. You don't have to. The cool thing about hitting 50 and saying is, you know, I don't have to keep working, but I like what I'm doing. It takes a lot of pressure off. You don't have to be there. And you know that any time that, really, I got to go to work? I'll give them my 2 weeks. I think I'm done. It gives you the liberty to make a decision. Whereas some folks would love to retire at 50 because they're getting to the point where they hate their job. They've been there long enough they really can't move around a whole lot. But they've got another 18 years at a job they hate. Really? Is that how you want to spend the next 2 decades of your life? Getting up 5 days a week to go to a job that you... Okay? So it gives you options. Okay? Which is cool. It's nice to have. Obviously, first you got to pay for college. But beyond that, one of the first things to fund is this every month. Okay? Because what that's going to do is it's going to give you the freedom to say at 50, you know what? I always wanted to go to Austria. I always wanted to go to Switzerland. I always wanted to go to Antarctica. Geez, every place I want to go has got snow, doesn't it? Okay. Wherever it is you may want to go, you can do it. I like my job. I think I'll hang around a little longer. Great, you can do it. Does that help any? Okay. Now, for some folks, they're going to say, you know, 50,000 a year is not going to cut it. And in 25 years, 35 years, 50,000 is not going to be that much. Sad to say. I think I'd rather have 100,000 a month or a year. Yeah, 100,000 a month would be sweet. Okay? I'd rather have 100,000 a year. This is where Emily's got to jump on a whole bunch of us. She's already got some things going. It's already growing. It's okay. If you want to have $100,000 a year in income, how much do you have to have in your investments? It works out to be about twice this. If you want $100,000 a year, this changes to $101,500,000. Kind of rounded off. If you want $100,000 a year, you've got to get $1.5 million together. Which is going to change how much you put in a month. It's going to put you at right around, depending how many years you work, $700-800 a month. Which brings me to a point that I've talked about before. For some of you, your income is too low. Okay? Now, one of the things that's cool is remember on that $700 or $800 a month, depending on where you're working, your employer may match, which takes down the amount you've got to put in, but you still may be putting in $500 a month. I'm not telling you what to do. All I'm saying is if you want to get to that point, you can't get there from where you're aiming. Which means that for some jobs, you may want to look at it and reconsider and think, you know what, maybe this should be a hobby. And maybe, I don't know, whatever it is that you really love, maybe there's some other direction you can take it to a job that'll pay more. Personally, I love investing in people. I do. Okay? I can think of nothing better than to get up in the morning and help somebody else with something. I'm serious. I'm the person who'll stop and help people alongside the road because I've always got tools in the car. Okay? I got calluses on my hands. I like to work. I like to do that stuff. Okay? That's what makes me happy. First choice, I'd rather be out in the woods. Notice I keep that blind up because I love to look over every once in a while, like making eye contact with you guys, but I also like looking at the trees. My first choice, leading hikes, teaching all of you about stuff out there. Okay? I looked at it and I realized this isn't going to get me anywhere. So I changed it a bit. I still get to invest. Okay? I still get to see the trees. But I'll get to retire someday and eat as well. So I just changed what my first choice was to something similar. For some of you may want to seriously consider something like that. $25,000 and $30,000 a year is not a career. Unless you marry really well. Okay? Enough said on that. Does this make sense on how to figure out what the total payment is going to be? Okay? This is how you figure out what the payment's going to be each month. This is a real fair question for the Quiz Friday. Once again, I would give you the correct equation. Now, for the 25, 30, 35 years, whatever it is you're going to be working, Emily's going to have a quick way out because she's already got 18 years into her Roth. I'm guessing about 18. Okay? Okay? When you look at the money, there are a couple of things that you may want to ask yourself. Okay? Is this group that I have managing my money doing a good job for me? And the way that you can answer that is by looking at how much they're charging you and looking at, one, the total return, and two, the annual return. Be careful. They mean different things. There's annual return. What does the word annual mean? Yearly. So this is going to talk about how much is coming back a year. Total return talks about the percentage over the entire time they've had the money. Does that make sense? I'll give you an example. Okay, I believe I've told you when my wife's grandmother passed away, she left some money, and my dad said, we don't need it, just give it to the grandkids. So Becky and each of her sisters got a share of the money from Grandma and Grandpa's estate. And Becky said, what should we do with it? And I said, whoa, correction, there's no we in your grandma's money. Okay, I don't want my fingerprints on your grandma's money. Okay, I would suggest that you put it into some type of an account and save it toward retirement. And she said, well, where should we put, whoa, time out, wrong pronoun. You mean where should you put it? I'll make some suggestions. Okay. I don't want grandma's money to go belly up and it be my fault. Okay, we put it into, whoops, sorry, she decided. We put it into a Vanguard account, a 403B, which is a secondary retirement account. As teachers, we are required by Ohio law to put our money into STRS. We don't even have a choice. They take it out of our checks before we even get it. We've got no choice where it goes. They just take it and say, tough, that's where it's going. Okay, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. In this 403B, we put in $15,000 that her grandmother left her. It was about 14 years ago. Okay? I check it every year or so, a couple times a year. I don't check it every day because these things go up and down, and they go up and down, and I don't want to know every little hiccup in it. I'm just curious to see what the trend is. It's a good fund. I'm not worried about it. Okay? 14 years ago, right now, let's round it off. It's a little more than this, but there's $80,000 in there. Yeah. We dropped 15,000 in, said see you later. It's over 80,000 now. Okay. Wow. Huh. Okay. So what is the total return on grandma's money? Well, you have an amount, A, that you started with. Sorry, a principal, A, that you started with. Looked at the wrong letter. An amount, A, that you have now. All you got to do is plug them in. I'll give you these equations. But the catch is, just because I give you the equation doesn't mean you're going to know how to use them, so be sure you practice this stuff. Okay? So in this case, it's going to be the 80,000 minus the 15,000 over the 15,000 times 100%. Let's see. 80,000 minus 15,000 gives me 65,000 divided by the 15,000. So that gives 4.33 times 100. Now be careful. What percent total return are we seeing on this investment to date? Well, let's see. When you multiply by 100, how many places do you slide the decimal? 2. So to date, we have seen a 433% return on the initial amount of money that was put in that account. Does that make sense, how to do that on the total return? Now that's the total. But the catch with total return is, okay, we could be talking and comparing notes and this, that, and the other thing. And here's some more things. And it's difficult to compare because total return could be over different numbers of years. Okay, Darren could have something in for 5 years, and I could have something in for 20 years, and I've got 500% return, and Darren's got 85% return. Well, who's doing better? Odds are Darren is, because if he's only had it in 5 years, he's already got 85%. Okay? The percentage isn't necessarily the whole story. You've got to also take into consideration how many years has that been there. Total return doesn't take that into consideration. Annual return does. What this is going to say is, okay, let's take everything back to the same standard. We're going to look at how is it doing year by year. In any one year, what percent are you getting? Annual return. Does that make sense, the difference between annual and total? For annual return, it would be the amount that we have, the 80,000, divided by the principal, the 15,000. Now, I'm going to raise it to the, well, it's insistent on putting hiccups in there, to the 1 over 14, because it's been there about 14 years. And then be careful. See that minus 1? People forget that frequently. Be careful. Don't forget that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 80,000 divided by the 15,000 equals. And I get 5.33. The way I'm going to enter this into the calculator to get this strange looking exponent is put the 1 divided by 14 in parentheses. Does that make sense to everybody? Be sure you can do this on your calculator. Because Friday, if you come up and say, Chuck, I can't get it to work, I'm going to say, well, that's what part of the quiz is about, to see if you can get it to work. Because one of these days, you got to do this on your own, right? Because you're not going to be in this class for the next 40 years. Okay? You're going to be on your own. After a couple of months, you're on your own. This is yours. Okay? So make sure that you really have it in hand. I'm going to take that, raise it to parentheses 1 divided by 14 parentheses, enter. And I get 1.127. Minus the 1 is going to give 0.127. Is that a very good return? Well, percentage-wise, what is that? 12.7. Remember before we were assuming a 7% return, and I said 7% is kind of conservative. If you go after some really good mutual funds and things, you can do better. So annually, what percentage rate is Grandma's money returning for Becky? 12.7% every year. That's not bad. So remember, when we figure these other things out at 7%, okay, you may be planning on having $1.5 million when you're done. May work out that you actually have $2.2 million. Is that a problem? Emily, are you going to be bummed if at 50 you thought you were going to have $1.5 million, but you got a little over $2 million? You say, rats, man, too much money. Okay? You all get it? Okay, what I'm doing on this stuff is I'm showing you on the conservative side so that the worst that's going to happen is you're going to have more than what you expected. Make sense? Does this make sense on the difference between total return and annual return? They're important to know. If you want to compare one person's investing or one fund to another, what you really want to know is the annual return, because it takes it back to what is it doing each year. Total return, you can have different numbers of years that it's been invested for, and it's difficult to then compare. Okay? So the annual return is the more useful of the two in understanding how the investment is performing. Okay. If I give you something like this on Friday, mutual fund, you put in $3,000. In 4 years, it grows to $8,400. First off, are you going to be happy with that or disappointed? That's not bad. In 4 years, you've come up with an extra $5,400. That's doing pretty good. What is the total and the annual return for the 4-year period of time? Can you do that? Okay. For the total return, okay, you're going to have that formula A minus P, whole thing divided by P times 100. You've got 180% return. That's not bad in 4 years. Annual return? Whoa. What's that doing per year? 29% return. Is that the kind of thing you can expect in the long run? No, that's kind of an unusually high return. But somebody's having fun there during that 4 years. Okay, so I keep talking about investing. I keep talking about putting your money into this or the other thing. What are different ways that you can invest? Well, what's going to wind up happening is you're going to go to a firm or your HR at work or whatever, and they're going to say you've got this option or this is the only thing we do here, whatever. But that money is going to be spent one of several ways. It's going to be used to buy stocks. What stock? You can buy stock in Skyline. Ooh, I can? What's stock? What the deal is the company takes and they divide up the value of the company into little packages. Okay? I doubt that you can afford to buy Procter & Gamble, can you? Okay? That'd be kind of a daunting task, wouldn't it? But can you buy a little bit of it? Yeah. One share of stock is one little tiny bit of Procter & Gamble. And if you take all the little bits together and add them all up, that's the total amount that Procter & Gamble is valued at. It's kind of like you buy a house, but you can't afford this $400,000 house. So you go in with 9 friends, and each of you puts down $40,000, and now you've got a $400,000 house. But how much of that house do you really own? Or 1/10, because there are 9 friends in you, so that's 10. You own 1/10 of it, don't you? That's kind of like stock. That's how stock works. You have access to it, but in reality, if they sell it, you only get 1/10 of the money. Okay? So that's how stock works. Now, with stock, the value can go up and down. The value can go to 0, like the company goes bankrupt, and that happens at times. Okay. But what you're hoping for on stock is as the company continues to come up with new products, continues to market the products they have, continues to invest on their own, that the value is going up. And as the value of the company goes up, your share of the value does what as well? Goes up. Okay? If you watch the value of companies, you will see them over time do things like this. And it's kind of a crazy ride. And what you're not so much needing to focus on is the ups and downs, but what you want to look at is what is the overall trend. The overall trend is kind of a line in the middle of it. Overall, what's the value of that company doing? It's going up, isn't it? That's what you want to see. Some people look at it every day or every week, and they happen to look at it when it's this, and they're, oh my gosh, what happened? And then they look at it again when it's this, and whoa, look at that. And then they look at it again when it's like, oh no, it's down. This sounds like a ride at Kings Island, doesn't it? Okay? That's why when I mentioned before, remember I said I don't pay attention to it day by day, do I? I just check it a few times a year. And what I'm looking for is the trend. I love roller coasters, but not with my retirement. Okay? So you invest some money to purchase a part of the company. Now, we've talked about liquidity. What's liquidity? How easy it is to get your money back. We've got some money at the credit union. If I want my money back from the credit union, what do? You just go there and say, I'd like my money. And what do? They hand it to me and I leave. The money that's in the account for grandma, from grandma. Do you think I can just walk up to somebody and say, hey, we want our money? No, you got to fill out papers and this, that, and the other thing, and they have to sell shares of stocks and shares of mutual funds, blah, blah, blah. And in a month or two, you get your check. Oh, that's a little harder to get at, isn't it? Then there are others, like STRS, or retirement through the state. Yeah, well, good luck getting your money out there before you retire. Okay. There are ways, but it's not pretty. With stocks, you buy a little chunk of the company, like buying a portion of the house. The way you get your money back out is by, one, selling your house, selling your shares. Okay? Another way to get some of your money out is they'll pay dividends. What they'll do is they take the profits and they split it up amongst everybody who owns in the company. Okay. as we talked about up above, you can either gain or lose on your original investment with stocks. You got to be careful. You got to know what you're doing. That's why we let a company take care of it for us. Because what do they do all day for a living? This. Who's going to know more about what's going on? Them doing this all day for a living, or me looking at it a few times? Okay? When it's time for surgery, do you say, hey, I've handled a knife. I'm going to save some money. I'm going to do this myself. How's that going to end? You hire somebody who knows what they're doing, right? It's the same thing with stuff like this. You hire somebody who knows what they're doing. On an announcement, I'll put up some homework. Do it out of the book. Okay? Oh man, that means you get to use paper and pencil. I know. It's better for you anyway. Research shows that. Friday's quiz will be over this stuff. I'll give you the equations, 4C. Okay? Folks, I hope you have a good day.